Welcome back to Record Rift, where we dive into the untold stories and forgotten histories. Today, we explore the legend of one of history's most enigmatic and controversial figures, the last warlord of Mongolia, Roman von Ungern-Sternberg. A man whose name evokes both fear and fascination, a leader who embodied the extremes of chaos and power in the dying embers of the Russian Empire. But who was the Mad Baron, and why did he capture the imagination of history? Let's dive into his story. Born in 1885 in what was then the Russian Empire, Roman von Ungern-Sternberg was a man of noble descent, with roots tracing back to Estonia. But the story of this man isn't one of privilege and comfort. As a child, his life was one of isolation, a figure distanced from the courtly life, growing up in the harsh climate of the Russian frontier. His family, with their aristocratic background, didn't have much wealth to give him the life of luxury one might expect. In the early 1900s, Europe was a boiling cauldron of political upheaval. And Roman, seeking something more than the monotony of aristocratic life, found his calling in the Russian military. A career soldier, he fought in the Russo-Japanese War and later in World War I. But it was the Russian Revolution of 1917 that would truly shape his destiny. As Russia descended into chaos with the Bolshevik Revolution, Ungern-Sternberg was not one to bow to the tide of Bolshevik control. In fact, he became one of the most infamous figures in the White Army, the anti-Bolshevik forces. However, his loyalties weren't just political. They were steeped in a deep belief in Russian monarchism and the restoration of the Tsar. And while many military leaders struggled with their purpose, Roman found a new cause: Mongolia. Why Mongolia? It was an untamed land, a place far from the collapsing Russian Empire. After the Russian Revolution, Mongolia was caught in a struggle for independence and identity. With Bolshevik influence spreading to its borders, the Mongols were at a crossroads. And here entered Roman von Ungern-Sternberg, not as a traditional soldier but as something far more unconventional. Ungern-Sternberg, now a colonel in the White Army, took command of a ragtag army of Cossacks, Chinese, and Mongol forces. His mission was not just to fight communism, it was to create an empire in his own image. He quickly became a leader who was revered by his followers and feared by his enemies. His army, known as the Army of the Black Baron, swept through Mongolia, decimating those who opposed him and cementing his reputation as one of the most ruthless warlords in the region. Known for his unpredictable and often brutal tactics, Ungern-Sternberg was a man who ruled through fear. He had no mercy for those who crossed him. But it wasn't just his tactics that made him infamous, it was his beliefs. Roman saw himself as a divine instrument sent to liberate Asia from the Bolshevik threat. Some even say he believed he was the reincarnation of Genghis Khan. His fanatical devotion to his cause and his military genius allowed him to create an independent Mongolian state, at least for a time. But as with all empires built on violence and fanaticism, his rule was short-lived. In 1921, Ungern-Sternberg's forces were overwhelmed by the combined might of the Red Army and Mongolian forces loyal to the Soviets. Betrayed by his own allies and outnumbered, the Mad Baron was eventually captured. Roman von Ungern-Sternberg was arrested and brought to trial. The execution was brutal, a fitting end for a man who had built his reputation on bloodshed. He was executed by firing squad in 1921. And so, the last warlord of Mongolia met his end. Ungern-Sternberg's story is one of madness, mysticism, and the final flashes of a dying empire. He may have been a warlord, but he was also a man caught between worlds, a fanatic with a vision, a man who sought to carve out his place in history but became a symbol of its end. And in the history of Mongolia, the shadow of the Mad Baron still lingers. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the life of Roman von Ungern-Sternberg, the Mad Baron, the last warlord of Mongolia. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more history stories from the edge of civilization. This is Record Rift. We'll see you in the next episode.